So, if you haven't heard the news, Virginia Tech's got a new coach, and his name is James Franklin. So, everybody knows the situation that happened with Penn State. Whether you agree or disagree with it, a change was made. And I was on the side of this may be his last legs that he stands on for sure. And just didn't win enough big games, didn't really have enough big moments in the way that they were losing, up to this point, well, up to the point of his firing, was not something that people had in their deck of cards. I literally had Penn State in my national championship, and a lot of it was due to how good their team was going to be, regardless if you thought about the fact that they went to the transfer portal, they grabbed Devontae Ross, they're going to get Trevor Pena, they're going to get Kyron Hudson, they're bringing back that whole offensive line that a lot of them, are up there in draft talks right now. And then, of course, you look at their quarterback situation with Drew Aller and the way that things ended with him on him breaking his ankle and, ultimately being out for the season. And people have a little bit of sour grapes about letting Drew 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝗶𝗲𝘀 go to Mizzou, and he ultimately ends up getting injured. So it's just been a land of misfit toys for everybody that's involved. But the news broke, and they went ahead and they fired James Franklin at Penn State. And I literally was talking amongst the crew. I'm like, I've had this strange feeling that if he doesn't go to Virginia Tech, he's got to go to, a group of five school and work his way back up. But I think the more and more I sat and thought about this situation with James Franklin, the more I agree with why he's at Virginia Tech. Not why, but the reason why, picking Virginia Tech was the right move. As long as they're patient, I think things are going to work out for them, right? So Virginia Tech, first of all, is a great option. If you've ever been to a game in Blacksburg, it's one of the best atmospheres out there, and nobody's used to big atmospheres and playing in big games more than James Franklin. He's going to be able to bring those guys back to prominence, in my opinion, and being able to show them that you can win big games and big moments. At the school that Virginia Tech is, they haven't had a lot of those moments in their history since Frank Beamer was there, right? And we'll go back in time here in a second. James Franklin will not only be in a hotbed, but he'll be able to recruit better as well. Pennsylvania is one of those places that is fueling with talent, but even he had to go to California to find a guy like Troy Hunt, who ends up decommitting after he gets fired from Penn State, right? And we'll come back to Troy here in a second. But Carolina, Georgia, Florida, he can go and recruit those states even more now, and being able to bring a cool thing with him of like, it's cool to play for Virginia Tech. We got the cool stadium at night, and, we got Metallica playing, and it's one of the best atmospheres to play in. So being able to get those recruits to buy into that and the way that he is ultimately a good thing. And the way that he turned down a lot of money to come play here proves to the families and the kids themselves that he's worried about football. Like, he's worried about the kids, and he wants to ultimately see success at Virginia Tech. He could prove a lot. I mean, he's the ultimate program builder, right? Go back to his Vanderbilt days, built them up, went to Penn State after the debacle that happened, and then Bill O'Brien comes in and gets them back up, and he took the mantle and literally got them a Big Ten championship a couple years in. The thing about Virginia Tech, if you go back in their coaching, in the coaching space, right? Justin Fuente was the last coach there, and this was in 2016, where they had their last 10-win season. So imagine James Franklin in 2 or 3 years getting their first 10-win season, or several 10-win seasons, ACC championship appearance. He would be a legend amongst the people down there in Virginia Tech and Blacksburg. I mean, just overnight. Can he correct the things that he failed at is the thing that I'm looking most closely at in this whole acquisition. If there's one thing that's been kind of a kind of put a Band-Aid on the bad situation year to year to year is him recruiting wide receivers. He'll be close to getting a pretty good wide receiver from a lot of those states that grow a lot of good wide receivers now. Um, he has recruited the state of Tennessee, and he'll be closer to Tennessee now. Um, since his Vanderbilt days, so he'll be able to kind of grab some guys down there and build his pipeline up even more. Can he bring in better coordinators? Not saying that Tom Allen and the rest of those defensive coordinators, Andy Kotelnicki and those guys aren't good coordinators, but he needs to find the right fitted coordinator. And what I mean by that is not going and trying to go in there and grab coordinators that do things that are out of the box and that are going to come and mix up your team and your chemistry because they've done really good things at other schools. No, really bring in the guys that are going to follow your philosophy and get you guys to the place that you need to. Like Andy Kotelnicki, by all accounts, is a very, very polarizing offensive coordinator. He does things that are not on the cuff, but find more chemistry with your coordinators. I think that'll ultimately help not only recruiting, which he's a recruiting superstar, but to get his team back to prominence. Develop his quarterbacks. Can you develop your quarterbacks from here on out? That's going to be the biggest thing that gets held over your head, because a lot of people think that you did not do Drew Aller justice in the way that things were handled there at Penn State. But here's a positive. Regardless of how we want to think about Penn State and the way that he got fired, how many players that decommitted were insane. But will those decommits now follow him to Virginia Tech and go ahead and build their program up? One of the prominent ones was Kevin Brown. He was an offensive lineman, and he was Penn State through and through, his commitment. Until recently, he decommitted, and my jaw was on the ground because he locked down his commitment with Penn State. Now, today, he announced that he's going to West Virginia. So we can automatically knock Kevin Brown out of this equation here. But Troy Hun, 4-star quarterback out of California, can he bring him back? Davion Brown, can he bring him? Elijah Littlejohn, J.Z. Hart, LeVar Keys, Kamon Spell, Leighton Von Brent, and Gabriel Jenkins, a cornerback for the 2027 class. So a lot of these guys are 4 stars from the 2027 class. Can he now bring those recruits over to Virginia Tech and build those guys up in a couple of years where they're actually going to be very, very good? How many of the current players that are at Penn State, how many of those guys are going to follow him to Virginia Tech now? This is looking, when you think about it, is building more positives than it is negatives. Now, what's going to be really hard for people in the ACC, like the Mike Norvells and the Mario Cristobal's, 2 guys that are known to be really good recruiting guys. Look, you bring another recruiting powerhouse in James Franklin at ACC, your recruiting pool has just closed up severely now that he's there. If there's anything, he's going to bring the talent to Penn State all over the place, and especially, finding the right coordinators that are going to help them recruit really, really well. Regardless of what you think about the play calling on the field, those guys are always recruiting powerhouses, and it starts with him as well. This is a great opportunity for him to bring a classic brand and a popular team back to prominence. There's no college football without Virginia Tech being good. I know they're not a blue blood or anything like that, but to me, when I grew up, it was Virginia Tech, and you had to play them hard because they brought things to the plate that teams were not expecting. They played fast. They played physical at night, and they were always one of those teams at the end of the day that you hate to play them at home. I think that's what he's going to bring back to their program. No matter how successful he gets, it's a great team to grow with, and here's the main point, to stay with. This job is a job where he doesn't have to use as a stepping stone. I would love him to build this program up and stay with Virginia Tech for the long run. The only expectations that he should have is to get them better than what they've been, and then everything else is just the icing on the cake. A couple ACC championships, a college football playoff appearance in a couple years, he would be like a god out there for Virginia Tech. And I think he can do those things. This is a low pressure situation for him with nothing but a positive atmosphere. And I believe those folks down there in Blacksburg, and I think the ACC really has to worry about that now he's there. Look, as a Florida State fan, I'm scared. I'm scared because there's no better evaluation period for a man than to find himself in adversity and to try to be better at what he's done from his past. And you're doing that with James Franklin. You don't think he's hearing all the noise about, oh, you should have been better here? Maybe he did let off the gas a little bit. But there's nothing more exciting for him than finding a great job like this, because it is a great job in my opinion. To find a great job like this, to put the pressure on the rest of the country, and to bring Virginia Tech back to prominence. There's a lot of people that are going to be clamoring at the bits for him again, but I think he should stay put. And I think at the end of this thing, we're going to be looking at James Franklin as one of the best coaches of all time. When you really look at the situation. I know that's very hard pressed to say, but I just kind of feel that in my heart of hearts at this point.